So the second Dune Direct happened the other day, and we've got a lot of information about the history, lore and design of Dune Awakening, alongside a look at the character creator, information on the closed beta and defining how the game is an MMO. Today I'll recap all of it for you, so without further ado, let's get started. Firstly, the nature of Dune's alternate history. This path was revealed in the story trailer shown at Summer Games Fest, and essentially, Dune Awakening will take place in an alternative timeline where Paul Atreides does not exist. Lady Jessica births a daughter, Duke Leto survives, and houses Harkonnen and Atreides are at war on Arrakis. The Fremen are also seemingly exterminated, all of which raises a lot of questions. Joel was on the Direct to explain more and answer many of those questions. They chose to go with an alternative timeline so as not to step on, damage or contradict the established lore of the Dune books, and staying true to the lore is something they've been working on with Legendary and the Herbert estate. In terms of clarifying the timeline, after birthing a daughter, Lady Jessica becomes a Bene Gesserit truthsayer and foresees Dr. Yue's betrayal. That allows House Atreides to prepare for the Battle of Arrakeen, and thus both houses Atreides and Harkonnen survive and remain in conflict. Duke Leto petitions the Landsraad afterwards, and the Emperor allows both houses to fight, but only on Arrakis, and on condition that spice continues to flow unabated, protected by the Sardaukar. This is presumably what creates the War of Assassins that's been mentioned a few times now. Lady Jessica's daughter, named Arastae, I believe, also has her own path. The ways of Lisan al-Gaib and the Kwisatz Haderach are not available to her, and though she receives much of the same training as Paul, she is her own separate person, but her path is still set by the Bene Gesserit, to be married to the heir of House Harkonnen to create the Kwisatz Haderach, so her life is quite different from Paul. That leads us to the player character. The dev team didn't want the player to be playing second fiddle to Paul, nor joining him, as it would undermine their own story and probably mess with the source material too, hence this sideward step. The big question has been about the Fremen and their apparent extermination. The Dune Awakening X account had previously implied that Paul wasn't able to see everything with his visions, and it seems that is the case. Joel clarifies that the Fremen are missing. Imperium propaganda says they're exterminated, but it's more of a mystery, and trying to find the Fremen is a core part of the game's story, including tracing the paths of their culture through old sieges and ancient sites. The game has a very clear journey and story, but it's not something you absolutely have to follow, so if you just want to survive on Arrakis, you can if you'd prefer. To close up the alternative timeline segment, Joel illustrated how the source material is always the starting point. They begin there and then reach a conclusion that can be placed in this alternative timeline, and to do so they consistently draw logical paths of what could have happened if X or Y condition was met. They even have a 10,000 plus word timeline document that has been shared with Legendary and the Herbert estate for fact and logic checking, and the ultimate focus is always preserving the legacy of Dune and not interfering with or undermining the source material. The next segment covered narrative and spirituality with Leah Talbot, the senior narrative designer. Even with the Fremen missing, Dune Awakening still has a heavy representation of the religious and spiritual journey of its various characters and factions. There isn't a clear dominant force on Arrakis, the world instead embroiled in the War of Assassins, creating instability and opportunity for the player and every other faction. All groups have their own motivations and various of them fight for their own beliefs and views, an example of which are the Mas Karat, a group of religious fanatics that have adopted and twisted the Fremen culture to their own ways. For the player character though, spice will still guide the journey, and whilst tracing the steps of the Fremen, will have to undertake the mystical trials of Arkell. The story of Dune itself is set in stone, but the story of Dune Awakening is anything but. That tale is yet to be written, and things seem wide open as to what could happen in this alternative timeline. Next, character creation. This is probably one of the first things you'll do in game, and it's focused on expression, with plenty of customization options, but also preset character looks if you don't really care what you look like. If you do, there are plenty of options. Height, limb thickness, vitiligo, age, sclera tint, hair, scars, tattoos, and plenty more, allowing you to refine your character and create the exact design you want. The background and history of your character seems to be done through Bene Gesserit interrogation, opening up dialogue options throughout the game depending on your choices. You can choose the planet you're from. The options we saw were Giedi Prime, Chusuk, Caladan, Kaitane and Ix. And you can also choose your social class, of which we saw Pion, Na Familia and Bondsman. You can then also decide what training you have received, which will give you skill paths and a starting ability. Some of these abilities include enemy scanning, use of the voice, deflecting darts, and what sounds like a zipwire or a grappling tether. These appear to be sort of like class archetypes. You can choose from Trooper, Mentat, Bene Gesserit Acolyte or a Swordsmaster. However, it was said you're not locked into a specific class. You can find trainers in-game to teach you all abilities, so you can mix and match to create a unique loadout. This part also revealed that you are sent to Arrakis as an agent of the Bene Gesserit.
Find the Fremen, wake the sleeper. You will know when it is done.
Character creation seems fairly in-depth, and I like the ability to choose where you're from and your class to influence dialogue. Hopefully that dialogue influence is a tangible effect in-game. Overall though, character creation looks pretty good. Joel then gave an update on the closed beta. The team are currently in persistent beta, which is a running 24/7 environment where testers can play from the start to the end game and test almost everything, including spice harvesting in the PvP zone, the political system and more. Not all the features are online currently, and apparently testers have been giving a lot of feedback, finding bugs and generally just breaking the game, which is what you want for a beta, to be fair. Plenty of info for the team to work with and improve on. The devs will also be showing more gameplay throughout the year, including combat. The persistent beta will grow larger over time and include more and more people. It sounds like they're taking their time with testing the servers and all the mechanics and systems, which is, in my opinion, pretty good. For our final major point, Dune Awakening has been touted as an MMO, but what makes it so? I'll be honest, the segment was a little complicated. There was a lot of technical details, and as someone that doesn't really understand much beyond the realms of Task Manager, I probably won't explain this the best, but I'll try. Dune has a wide array of servers all weaved together. Players will choose a specific world or dimension they want to play in, basically an infrastructure of interconnected servers, and that allows many people to play together. When you start, you'll begin in Haga Basin, a server with a minimum of 40 players. You can then leave the Haga Basin server and travel to other servers through the overland map, which allows you to see the other maps the game has. That also includes the social hubs of Harko Village and Arakeen, which both have bars, clubs and plenty more other places for people to socialise. The guild system will also go across servers, so you don't just have guilds with people specifically in your server, but you could also have members in other servers. Through the overland map you can also reach the Deep Desert, a PvP zone with a small strip of PvE at the start to ensure people don't immediately get jumped on. The Deep Desert is larger than 500 kilometers squared and can be populated by hundreds of players in a seamless set of servers, and sounds like it'll be a high risk, high reward area for gathering spice and other valuable resources. Each week a Coriolis storm will roll in and reset the desert to change the landscape and keep things fresh. To put everything in simple terms to the best of my understandings, players will choose a server to play on and that is sort of their home world. However, you can then travel between other servers through the overland map and interact with people that don't live on your home server in the social spaces and the Deep Desert. This server infrastructure is designed to keep the game going for many years and is ready for future content after launch. Joel said that it's always been an issue for survival games where it's one map and one server, so this approach really opens things up for the future. If my understanding is correct, Dune will be a pretty interesting MMO. Rather than trying to pack thousands of players into one world, your home world will have something of a player limit, with multiple copies of that world hosting other players on different servers. You can then travel between your home world and the various social spaces that I presume anyone from any server can connect to, alongside the Deep Desert, a massive PvP area populated by potentially hundreds of players at once. This was all quite complicated to be fair, but I imagine it'll make a lot more sense once the game is out and people can see how it functions. Final point to wrap things up, Dune Awakening will be shown at Gamescom in August, including a live showcase of the game itself. Hopefully we'll get to see some more gameplay, and I imagine there will be a third Dune Direct afterwards. And with that, it about wraps us up for our recap of the second Dune Direct. some interesting information about the alternative timeline and the religious and spiritual themes represented in-game, alongside a showcase of the character creator and technical details on Dune's MMO nature and the progress of the closed beta. I'm pretty intrigued by what's been laid out here, and I am looking forward to seeing more at Gamescom in August and future Dune Directs too. And there we have it, all the details coming out of the second Dune Direct. Thank you for watching, and of course a massive thanks to our wonderful esteemed coffee cultists for continuing to support the channel over on Patreon. Don't forget to drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for more Conan Exiles videos and Dune Awakening news too. Take care, and I'll see you soon.